Next comes is traffic padding. What is this traffic padding will do? Information transfers through the network. If the information is transferring through the network, repudiation is denying the message, denying that sender has sent the message and receiver denying that lose the integrity. That part of data will be provided. Or if you think the entire data is at most important, normal form of the data to a hidden form, which is called as encipherment. At least we can recover from the attack, recover the lost data. Or hello students, welcome to the next session in network security. Myself, Dr. Saumishri, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram College. In the last session, we discussed the basics of information or network security. What is network security? What is the goal of network security? Like confidentiality, integrity, and the availability. Along with that, we discussed about some of the possible attacks that can happen on a network, on a data stored in a system or moving around in the network. In continuation with that topic, in today's session, we are going to discuss about the topic services and the mechanism provided by the network providers. Who are going to give these services and mechanisms is the provider who sets the network for you. So that will be the topic of this session. We shall look at the services. What is a services? Security services are the services provided by the network provider to give you the protection or security for your data. So, these services and mechanisms are determined. What are the services to be provided? What are the mechanisms to be incurred or practiced to give those services will be determined by an organization known as ITUT, where ITUT stands for International Telecommunication Union, Telecommunication Standardization Sector. So, this organization will fix the services that will be provided by a network provider along with the different mechanisms that must be incorporated to provide those services. So, it defines the service and the mechanism as the services which are given to achieve the security goals. In the last session, we discussed about security goals, is it not? So, to achieve those security goals and to protect your data from possible attacks, the service provider, the network provider will give some services as well as the mechanisms. So, these services and mechanisms are closely related. Why? Because services are determined to give the security to your data and the mechanisms are used to provide a particular service. What are the services provided and what are the mechanisms for providing those services will be our next concept. When it comes to security services, we have the definition of service as a processing or communication service that enhances the security of the data. Our subject itself is securing the data, is it not? We have to secure the data in our network. So, a single aim of having network services is providing security of the data processing systems and the information transfers of an organization. How does information transfers through the network? If the information is transferring through the network, how you should protect those data. So that is the main concept in security services, whereas the security mechanism concentrates on the design to protect, detect, prevent or recover from a security attack. The first goal of mechanism is providing a service. In that service, what they are going to do is, first thing is detecting whether there is a chance of having any attack. We have to first detect, because prevention is better than cure, is it not? Taking proactive actions after the incident has happened will not be of much use when compared to actions that will be taken before that crime happens is a better thing, is it not? So, the first goal of the having security mechanisms is to detect the attack. If not possible, or if you have detected any possible attack, you must try to prevent it. Prevention is again the same thing, which is better than recovering from the attack. You have run the detecting algorithms, but were not able to detect the attack or not able to predict the attack. If you have not detected, you cannot prevent, is it not? And the attack has happened. What is the next step you can take? At least we can recover from the attack, recover the lost data or changed data to the original form to maintain the integrity of the data. So, mechanisms are used either to detect and prevent or to recover from an attack. So, methods or techniques to achieve these services will be provided by the service mechanisms. Now, we shall look at various types of services provided by the network. First one is the data confidentiality. So, this confidentiality term you are familiar from the last session, is it not? We may have repeated so many times. One of the service provided by the network security provider is the data confidentiality. Next comes is the data integrity. Next is the authentication, non-repudiation and the access control. Next is, we shall discuss in detail about the services that are provided. First one is the data confidentiality. What is the data confidentiality service will give is to protect data from the disclosure attack. If the attacker is hiding his identity from the service provider, the confidentiality service will make sure that the attack will be detected by the some of the mechanism. We shall discuss the mechanism later. One of the goal is, or service provided is, protect data from disclosure attack. It is usually designed to prevent the snooping and the traffic analysis. So these are the possible attacks that we have discussed in the last session, is it not? Snooping is picking into some other's ID or some other's credentials or some other's data, is it not? Traffic analysis is analyzing the traffic pattern happening between a sender and the receiver. So the data confidentiality service ensures that it prevents possible attacks of snooping and traffic analysis. Next comes is the data integrity. What does the data integrity service will provide is, it is designed to protect data from modification. What does the integrity goal will explain is, it must not modify the data. Along with modification, it must not insert unnecessary data. If you have unnecessary data, it will be again the violation of one of the goal of security, that is integrity, is it not? Along with that, deleting. If you have not inserted or you have deleted some of the data from the file, again it is a violation of integrity. So this service, data integrity, makes sure that your data will not undergo any modification or insertion of unnecessary data or deletion of necessary data and replying by an adversary or an attacker. Replying is, as we have said in the last session, replying is passing on same message by the attacker, which was originally sent by the sender, which will be repeated. Same message will be repeated by the attacker. Data integrity service avoids all these things while handling your data. The next thing is, it may protect the whole message. Like if you have the entire message, chunks of message, it may protect your whole message or any part of message which you recognized as which is important. It must not be lost or it must not lose the integrity. That part of data will be provided. Or if you think the entire data is at most important, it has to protect the whole message. For those things, we have different mechanisms. Next comes is the authentication service. How does the authentication service will be provided is, what is the goal of this service is authentication of the party at the other end of the line, whether it may be sender or the receiver. To the sender, this data service provides the authentication of the receiver, that you are sending the message to a right receiver, not the attacker. When it comes to receiver, the data service ensures that the data has come from an authenticated sender, not the attacker. Like in your repudiation, where the person will hide his identity or he'll change the identity. So that will be a threat to the security of the data, is it not? To avoid that thing, the authentication service ensures that the authentication of the sender and the receiver must be provided through the network to the sender or to the receiver. So this is another service provided. What happens in communication when it is connection oriented? When it is connection oriented, it provides authentication of the sender or receiver. There will be a determined sender as well as a determined receiver in the connection oriented communication. So this service provides the authentication of the sender or the receiver. This is in case of connection oriented. What happens in connection less? There will be determined sender, but there will be no determined receiver. Anyone can receive the data who are there in the receiver end. For that connection or less communication, how does the authentication is confirmed is using the providing the source of the data to the receiver. Receiver will get from which source the data has been communicated to him, so that he can confirm the data has been given by an authenticated sender or not. In connection less, it provides the source of the data. Next comes is the non-repudiation. Non-repudiation is where repudiation is denying the message, denying that sender has sent the message, and receiver denying that receiver has received the message. This non-repudiation service confirms that repudiation attack will not happen. What does it will do? It is designed to prevent snooping as well as traffic analysis. What does the snooping will do is, it will make the person to deny by peeking at the data sent by the sender. What does the repudiation will do? It will deny the message. It will send another message that I have not sent them this message. I am the if attacker is there, so attacker will send a message that I am the authenticated sender. You have to take this message. So this must be avoided by the non-repudiation service. Otherwise, what happens? The receiver may receive fault message as well as sender may receive false request. Next comes is the access control. Access control is related to the denial of service, one of the attack. Access control service, what it will do is, it provides the protection against unauthorized access to data. It confirms that unauthorized person will not be able to access your data. So these are the some of the services provided by the security provider or network security provider. In access control, it may be reading, writing, modifying or executing any program. He may read or write, modify or delete anything. If he gets access to that message, anything he can do, is it not? What does the access control will do is, it will try to avoid this procedure of giving access to unauthorized person or the attacker. Next comes is the security mechanisms. So we have several security mechanisms that are provided by the network security provider. One thing is encipherment. Next is the data integrity. Next is digital signature. Next is authentication exchange. Next is traffic padding, routing control, notarization and the access control. These are the some of the mechanisms provided for ensuring the services that we have discussed. Now, in detail, we shall discuss about the security mechanisms. The first mechanism that can be implemented to ensure a service is the encipherment. What is encipherment? It is the enciphering or hiding data by changing the pattern of the data. Will make the data hidden in some other form. Will change the form of the data. It will be like a secret code word. Like secret code word, we change the normal form of the data to a hidden form, which is called as encipherment. It is provided to ensure the confidentiality of the data. It can also be used to complement other mechanisms. Along with other mechanisms, encipherment is also used for ensuring the protection of the data, because when compared to all the other methods, encipherment is the most widely used method of protecting data from the attacker. In this encipherment, we use two methods of cryptography and steganography. Cryptography is, as I have said, changing the form of the data so that the attacker will not be able to recognize what is the original content of the data. What does the data has will not be able to recognize by the attacker. Another method is steganography, where the data will be hidden in some other files, which looks like the normal file. If you have a secret data to be sent on the network, in steganography, what they will do? They will hide that data in some other video or audio file or some other image, so that the attacker will not be able to recognize that your data is hidden in that file. So that the protection of the data or security for the data can be provided, which is called as the method of steganography. About cryptography and steganography, we can discuss in the upcoming units. The next method is data integrity. In data integrity, what does the mechanism will do is, a short check value has to be appended with the original data. Like we do in network, we provide a header to the network. In the same way, for the data that has been passed over the network, a check value will be provided to process from the data itself. So we will provide a check value. What is the purpose of having the check value is, when sending a data, sender will generate a private check value which will be sent along with the data packets. When in the receiver end, what does the receiver will do? He will generate same set of values, check values, public check values, and he will compare the check value generated by him along with the check value sent by the sender. When the check values match, then only he can confirm that the data has been received in the same form as sent by the sender. Otherwise, the data will be discarded and request will be sent back to the sender to repeatedly send the same data. Next comes is the digital signature. This is not the signature that will be done using the pen. What does the digital signature will do? The sender can electronically sign the data and the receiver can electronically verify the signature. Signature is having some key, generating some key or some message which is known only to the sender and the receiver. Attacker will not be known of that message. Along with original data or the message, the sender will send a key, private key or secret key, which will be known only to the sender and the receiver. When the receiver receives the data along with that key, he will verify that key and confirms that the data has been sent by the same sender and original data is received, because ultimate aim of every service and mechanism is to ensure the security goals, that is confidentiality, integrity and the availability. The digital signature will ensure all the three goals must be fulfilled. Next comes is the authentication exchange. What does the authentication exchange mechanism will do? In authentication exchange, two entities, sender and the receiver, will exchange some messages to identify the sender as well as the receiver for authentication, for checking the authentication. There will be some secret messages which ensures that sender is authenticated one to the receiver and receiver is authenticated to the sender. Both will acknowledge the authentication of the each other. So, the main thing is you have to authenticate the identity of the sender as well as the receiver. Next comes is traffic padding. What is this traffic padding will do? As we have said, in traffic analysis, what they will do is, they will check for some of the patterns of packets that is going through a network. When it is in a particular pattern, they can predict what is the possible data that has been sent over the network. What does the traffic padding will do is, it inserts some fake data. Along with original data packets, it ensures or it inserts some fake data packets so that pattern will change with every communication of the packets. With every time duration, with every time slice, the packet pattern will change, because in some time interval, it sends fake data packets along the network so that attacker gets confused or may not be able to find out the match in the pattern. So there will not be any pattern to the data that has been sent. So in traffic padding, what happens? Fake data will be inserted into the data traffic with the original data packets so that the attackers may not be able to draw a pattern between the data communication. Next mechanism that can be followed is routing control. What does the routing control will do? Routing control is selecting and continuously changing different available routes. We will be having several routes to send a data. What we will do is, what does the data communication will do? It will check for the least spent data or network route so that the data can be sent within less time. But what does the routing control will do? It will go on changing the available routes. It will not send the data packets in the same route all the time. With the time slices, it go on changing the routes. Like in your movies, we can know, we have watched, where if somebody is chasing a hero, what the hero will do? He'll go on changing the routes so that the person who is following him gets confused. Is it not? In the same way, in routing control, the data packets goes in different routes for every communication so that attacker will not be able to predict the route of the data communication, and he'll not be able to access the data. So opponent, from eavesdropping on particular route, if you have several routes, he'll not be able to access the data if you have sent the data in some other route. Is it not? This is all about routing control. Next comes is the notarization. What is this notarization is all about? In this case, a third trusted party has given the control of communication. I may not know, if I am a receiver, I may not know that if the sender is a trusted one or sender himself is the attacker. Or if I am a sender, I may not know or I am not sure whether the receiver is a trusted person, authorized one, or a attacker. This happens when we are following connectionless communication, where receiver will not be a determined one. In that case, notarization, what it will do, the mechanism, a third trusted party will be engaged in this communication of data so that that person or that third party will ensure that both the sender as well as the receiver will be authorized one, so that you can have the integrity of the data as well as ensure the security of the data communicating in a network. So it controls the communication. Third party will control the communication. The receiver can involve a trusted party to store the sender request. This is useful in case of repudiation, where the sender will deny the message. What happens if you have a third party is, third party will store the request sent by the sender as well as store the request forwarded by the receiver. So this ensures that the repudiation attack will not happen in a network. Next comes is the access control. In access control mechanism, it uses methods to prove that user has access right to the data. How do you ensure the authorization of the normal method of ensuring the authorization is having the input credentials like the username and the password. Normal method of getting the authorized person or checking for the authorization is we use username and password in our case of email, or pins in case of bank accounts or having monetary transaction, or some other method of, now we have the new method of sending one-time password or OTP. So these are the some of the methods, mechanisms that can be followed to ensure that the person who is accessing a particular data is a authorized one. Only authorized person are having access to the data. So it ensures the access right of the person, whether he is an authorized one for accessing the data or not. These are the some of the mechanisms. Now here we have a table of representation which connects the relationship between the service as well as the mechanism. If it is, when it comes to data confidentiality service, what are the mechanisms that can be followed is encipherment as well as routing control. Confidential, they will be maintained in this. When you follow encipherment method along with digital signature and data integrity, you can provide the service of data integrity. By following method of multiple mechanism like encipherment, digital signature, authentication and authentication exchanges, the service provided will be authentication of the data. Next is the digital signature, and notarization and data integrity mechanisms will ensure that non-repudiation service will be provided for the user of the data, and access control mechanism will be given for ensuring the access control. So this is a table of representation for relationship between the service as well as the mechanism. Okay, so this is about the service and the mechanism. In total, what is the main thing or what is the main purpose of having all these services and mechanisms is ensuring the network fulfilling the goals, that is confidentiality, integrity as well as the availability. This is about today's session. In the next class, we shall discuss about the different techniques to implement these services. Mechanisms we have seen. In the next session, we shall discuss about how does these mechanisms can be implemented. So that is the next session's topic. Thank you.